All right, it's Sunday morning. Hope everybody's weekend is going well. It's laundry day, so got to fold some shirts. I watched an interview this morning with a columnist for The Atlantic, a guy named David Graham. He's got a new book coming out called The Project, and it's about how the Trump administration has been systematically implementing Project 2025 and the things that they've done that are either directly from Project 2025 or entirely consistent with Project 2025. And they played a clip of our new Director of Office of Management and Budget, Russell Vought. And, I've been doing podcasts for a year and a half. The very first podcast episode that I recorded a year and a half ago was on Project 2025, and not too many people knew what it was back then. And then I think I did 2 episodes on Russell Vought last summer. The guy's a white Christian nationalist, and he has vast experience working inside the government. He knows how the levers of government actually work, and he knows how to implement Project 2025. He knows how to get it done working within the confines of the executive branch. And it's still just stunning to me that the Heritage Foundation, who came up with Project 2025, they wrote it and they put it out there. They put it out on the internet 18 months before Election Day in 2024. They just published it and said, here's what a Trump second term is going to look like. And then, of course, last summer, when it finally broke through and started gaining traction, and people started to realize what was in it, and it started to get a lot of coverage, and there was polling on it, and it was unimaginably unpopular, and people were like, no, this is not what we want. And you remember Trump saying, I've never read it, I don't know what it is, but I disagree with everything that's in it. I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. Which is kind of like me with new foods, but whatever. And so he's trying to distance himself from it. His campaign chair, what was his name? God, I can't remember the guy's name. One of the co-chairs, he called up Project 2025 and was like, fire the guy who was in charge of this. And Project and the Heritage Foundation did. That's how hard they were trying to distance themselves from Project 2025. But then Trump got elected. And, one of the main mechanisms to implement Project 2025 is executive orders. And Trump started with the executive orders on day one. A lot of them are getting shot down by the courts. We'll see if Trump is going to obey the courts. But so many of his executive orders are getting just blown out of the water by federal judges. But, the other parts of some of the other parts of Project 2025 that they're implementing is firing hundreds of thousands of federal workers. They want to eliminate entire departments and agencies like the Department of Education, totally defund agencies like the EPA. Russell Vought in 2023, he gave a couple of speeches, and I saw clips of these this morning where he was like, I want federal workers to be terrified to go to work. I want them to feel traumatized in a second Trump term, not knowing every single day whether or not they're going to get fired. I want them to not want to come to work. And we want to strangle funding for these agencies so that the EPA doesn't have any funding, and we've fired all of their personnel so that the EPA can't implement these silly rules that they come up with. I mean, he said that flat out over a year before Election Day. And it's like, nobody fucking paid attention, man. And, you know, one of the pillars of Project 2025 is getting America and Americans, white Americans, Republican Americans, back to traditional biblical families. And it's like, what does that even mean in the world of today's Republican Party? That dad only gets on Grindr when he's out of town at the GOP convention in Milwaukee, that he doesn't get on Grindr during the week when he's home with the wife and kids? I mean, what the hell does that even mean? I mean, where the kids, you know, are only getting fondled by the youth pastor as opposed to anybody else. And they want to use the levers of government to basically force people to have traditional biblical families. So gay marriage is out of the question. Gay adoptions that's gone. That's their plan anyway. And you know, the one thing that has happened that is not part of Project 2025 was Elon Musk. I mean, cutting funding and cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. Cutting waste, fraud, and abuse is part of every presidential administration. But the Doge thing and Elon Musk were not explicit in Project 2025. Somehow that just kind of happened. And it's been joyous watching Elon Musk have to face and deal with the pushback that he's gotten. I mean, what was it, March 29th or whatever it was? The International Day of Protest at every single Tesla dealership and charging station across the United States and at multiple locations all around the globe. And Tesla's revenue's down 71% for the first quarter of 2025. And he, you know, first he started off by saying, I'm going to cut $2 trillion. And then they had to trim that back to $1 trillion. And then they settled somehow on $160 billion. That's about the same amount as Elon Musk's net worth has decreased since December. So he could have just written the government a check for that amount. And because federal spending under Donald Trump, because he's trying to do all this mass deportation stuff and all these other things, federal spending has increased over last year under Joe Biden in the same period during the first quarter by about $150 billion. So it's like we've gone through all of this destruction of all of these agencies, departments, and services in the executive branch for really no net savings whatsoever, which tells you it was never about the savings. Doge was never about saving money. It was about destroying Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, destroying the VA, you know, destroying these things that provide the CFPB, you know, hamstringing the EPA, doing away with the Department of Education, getting rid of USAID, you know, and just destroying all of these programs that actually benefited Americans and poor people around the globe. And then I guess this week Elon Musk said, well, I'm stepping away from Doge, and I'm only going to be at Doge 1 or 2 days a week as needed, whatever, okay, because he's really, really upset. He's really, really, really upset. He's really upset with the pushback that he's gotten from people on the left. You guys have heard his feelings. And I've said this 100 times before. What is kryptonite to every single billionaire? Even the smallest amount of criticism, it just absolutely cripples them. And they can't take it. When you look at Zuckerberg, Bezos, and Elon Musk and all those guys, it's like, because they surround themselves with people who 24/7 tell them what an incredibly unique genius they are and that everything that they say is 100% correct. And it's like when they get criticism, especially when they get criticism from the plebeians who are supposed to be their grateful customers, they can't handle it. They just completely come unglued. They can't do it. And it's like, so think about, Trump gave an interview with Time Magazine about his first 100 days. And, obviously they asked him a lot of questions about the tariffs. And, they asked him if President Xi from China has called him. And he's like, he calls me all the time. Yeah, he's called me. He's called me. We've talked about tariffs. We're working out a deal. And the Chinese government was like, no one from the Chinese government has made contact with anybody from the Trump administration since the beginning of the year. Trump's just flat fucking lying. He's just lying. And he's really upset that President Xi hasn't called him. It's wounding him personally. But we're almost 100 days in. Congress has passed one single bill that Trump has signed into law, the Laken-Riley Act, which is about immigrants killing Americans, and, presumably that was already illegal. So they passed a bill that Trump signed into law that made illegal things more illegal, things that were already illegal. I don't know. But they've not passed any legislation. They haven't passed his big, beautiful budget bill. Trump hasn't nominated one single federal judge. The Republicans in the Senate are like, we're ready to start confirming judges. Trump hasn't made one single judicial nomination since Inauguration Day, not one. And he's been doing all of this stuff through executive orders because Republicans in the House and the Senate aren't passing any bills. There's no legislation. And I did a video on this yesterday. It's like Republicans like Steve Bannon and that whole crowd and the MAGA base. We're almost 100 days in with Pam Bondi as Attorney General and Kash Patel as Director of the FBI. And where are the mass arrests? Kash Patel had a hit list. He had a list of 60 people in his book, Government Gangsters, that he said should be arrested and put in jail immediately. They're not even investigating any of those people, let alone arresting them. And the MAGA base is like, what the hell, guys? Where's our mass arrests? And then I'll do a separate video on this. There's a whole slew of polling that has come out, and Donald Trump is underwater in every single category. 3 polls had his approval rating at respectively 41%, 40%, and 39%. And he's never polled that low, ever. He's never polled that low. He's underwater on his 2 biggest strengths. He's underwater on immigration and the economy. 50% of Americans think he should bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia home and that his immigration policies are too harsh. And he's underwater by 18 or 20 points on handling of the economy. And what did he run on? He ran on the economy, inflation, and immigration. And he's underwater on all 3 of those things right now. So it's like, I'm almost feeling like we just have to wait him out. I mean, most of the really horrific shit that he's doing is being stopped by the courts. He's not getting anything done in Congress at all. The House Republicans have such a slim margin. They're not going to be able to pass anything without Democratic support. And, so it's like, yeah, and Harvard's going to win their lawsuit against him and his administration. And every single law firm that he's written an executive order about that's gone to court has gotten an injunction. So they're going to win all of those lawsuits too. He's like a bull in a china shop, but the bull has an IQ of 60 and doesn't know how to get any of this shit done, which is what makes Russell Vought so dangerous at OMB. Russ Vought at OMB wrote the 2nd chapter of Project 2025 on executive power. Russ Vought knows what he's doing. But what the hell? We'll see what happens, I guess. All right, my laundry's all folded. Thanks for keeping me company while I folded my shirts.